Have you ever noticed how one tiny moment can completely change your mood? A text, a comment, or even someone's tone of voice suddenly feels impossible to ignore. 1 minute, you're perfectly fine. The next minute, you're replaying the conversation in your head, wondering what they meant and why it bothered you. And the frustrating part is that you know it shouldn't matter this much. Yet somehow, your brain keeps returning to it again and again. You analyze their words, their expression, their intention. You even imagine conversations that never happened, trying to find an answer that finally brings peace. Meanwhile, the other person has probably moved on. They're making dinner, watching television, or scrolling their phone while you're still carrying the moment. If you've ever done this, let me reassure you of something. You're not weak, dramatic, or overly sensitive. You're experiencing something deeply human. Psychologists often call these moments triggers, but I think there's a better way to understand them. They're more like emotional hijacks. An emotional hijack happens when your feelings take control, before your rational mind has time to catch up and understand what's really happening. What's interesting is that triggers rarely begin where we think they do. Most people assume they're reacting to what's happening right now. But if that were true, why can two people experience the exact same situation and walk away feeling completely different things? Imagine two people receiving the same criticism. One shrugs and moves on. The other thinks about it for the rest of the day. The difference isn't usually the words themselves. The difference is what those words mean to each person hearing them. Your brain doesn't just hear comments. It searches for patterns. It asks, "Have I felt something like this before?" and responds accordingly. That's why a small comment today can suddenly awaken emotions that seem far bigger than the situation in front of you. Maybe it reminds you of being ignored. Maybe it reminds you of being judged. Maybe it touches an old fear you forgot existed. Most of this happens automatically. You don't consciously choose it. Your brain is simply connecting dots faster than you can notice. Emotional triggers can be compared to bruises. If there's no bruise, a touch feels normal, but a bruise changes everything. Even a gentle touch can hurt when the area is already sensitive. The touch didn't create the bruise, it simply found it. And emotional triggers often work exactly the same way. The person upsetting you today may not have created the original wound. Sometimes they simply touched a place that was already hurting. Understanding that can completely change how you view your reactions. Now, here's the good news. Between the trigger and your reaction, there is a small space where something important can happen. Most people move through that space so quickly, they don't even realize it exists. The trigger happens, and the reaction immediately follows. But emotionally resilient people learn to notice that space. They create a pause before the automatic response takes over completely. And that pause doesn't need to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just one breath. Sometimes it's just one thoughtful question. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with them?" try asking, "What happened inside me just now?" It's a surprisingly powerful shift. That question transforms you from a reactor into an observer. And observers often discover things that emotional reactions hide from view. Another helpful skill is noticing your emotional temperature earlier. Most people notice emotions when they're already boiling over, but emotions usually build gradually. A little irritation, a little tension, a little hurt, then eventually a much bigger reaction. The earlier you notice those feelings, the easier they become to understand. Awareness often prevents emotions from taking complete control. Sometimes it helps to simply name what you're feeling. Hurt, embarrassed, rejected, defensive. Naming emotions can reduce their intensity. It's also worth remembering that people are often carrying struggles you'll never see. Stress, exhaustion, fear, disappointment, or insecurity. So the next time something triggers you, slow down and get curious. The goal isn't perfection. It's understanding yourself a little better, because triggers don't just reveal something about other people. They reveal something about your fears, your beliefs, and your healing. When you start looking at triggers that way, they stop being enemies. They become information that helps you grow and understand yourself. You won't control every comment, every criticism, or every difficult person you encounter. That's simply part of being human. But you can control what happens next. And that choice, made one moment at a time, is how you stop the hijack.
Stop chasing motivation. Start understanding your mind. Subscribe to Inner Violet and learn how to think, not just react.